This is the carcass. Probably one of the worst glue ups I've ever had, I've ever done in my life. Couple of reasons. First one, because I've tried to do too many things at once, and secondly, because I don't have that many clamps, and didn't help the fact that I forgot two in my car, and my car wasn't with me at the time. So, without going into major details, I put the dowels in. This one had to be re-glued again. Look at the mess in here. There's going to be quite a lot of planing in here. You can feel a little bit of a lip in here. That's around 1 millimeter, because this one warped. Is an interesting. I'm hoping when I put the shelf, despite it isn't glued, I won't glue the shelf. Hopefully, will add a little bit of the structure. The reason being I will not glue it is because the grains are going this way, whereas in the shelf are going that way, so there will be a different expansion, and last thing I want is the shelf expanding and contracting, dragging this one away from the actual back edge. Just gonna see how it looks like. If worse comes to worse, I'll take it all apart again and try to fit it again, this time with more clamps. There is a substantial bow in here. This is where the knot is. I don't think I could do much about it because it's exactly on the line, and this is where it has bowed the most. So anyhow, it is what it is. Not hugely impressed by it, but I think it was a little bit too ambitious. It was quite funny. I'm glad I was not recorded whilst doing this. However, great experience. Let's move on. So shelf has been flattened, very happy, found those two hinges, and now I just want to position them in a way that sit reasonably flush, maybe just a little show here, and the door panel, the front panel only has to be basically horizontal for me to access things, in fact a little bit less, so all I need to do is position them where the bottom of this is in line flush with that. Love to leave as little gap as possible to the side, so it's be recessed reasonably deep, maybe just flush with that or a little bit more. I just need to see how it's going to pan out. So off we go. I already marked it, and now just starting to go. Grain direction goes up, so I'm going to chop it this way, except for the very start. unfortunately I only have PZ screws short enough to not to go through that, so I will get a hold of some brass slotted screws and hinges, 4 hinges, so it's going to look much better. This one looks a little bit like a punch in the eye, really. Yeah, it's terrible. And I just put some oil, especially in the oak, because it's quite acidic type of wood, plus the oxidation to the tannins, and it will normally get the screw stuck and rusty due to the oxidation. So just put some oil. Cool, let's see what it looks like. Really happy with the look. Obviously there is a gap at the bottom because that lip, I need to cut a groove in here so it will rest on that, so it will be supported at the top by the hinges, in the middle by the shelf, and at the bottom on that lip. And that lip is going to prevent to so if there is a groove, the bottom of the grooves will sit on that tiny little lip and it will actually rest on it, so it's going to stop the weight of the planes to actually drag it down, especially with these, because this is already warped. What I'm not hugely happy with is that, of course, I'm not sure if you can see it, there is probably about 4 millimeters here that way. Now this is going to be that side, so it's not going to be seen really. However, I don't like it. In here I've got 1 millimeter this way, so basically ideally I want to loosen up the screws, pull it a little bit that way, and basically equal the gap in between. So aside from that, I really like the look, really do. That's really good. So this will be mainly for my planes, router planes, and all. The other thing that is great is that that's the maximum opening, and I was able to put the hinges flush, because obviously I don't really need to go any further up. All I need to do is from here. I wanted to have a handle, but this one is going to come down a bit more. There will be the 4 castors lifting it, so all I would need to do is actually put my hand underneath and lift it like this, and that will make all of this space accessible, which is a lot of storage. I'm really happy with the idea, especially given the fact that this is all recycled wood. This I milled myself. Actually, this one I picked up myself from the actual woods and milled it. So really pleased with this. Okay, lovely. So I finished to put the hinges on, and I'm reasonably happy. I still got, when the lid is closed, a couple of millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters out, and I think there is too much warping from everywhere, basically, because the hinges sit absolutely flush. They are completely parallel and in line with the top. This is totally in line, so there doesn't seem to be a mistake in alignment at the top, yet the actual end is slightly, this is perfectly flush now. This one has got little give, so it's fine. Doing the actual separation, I took a piece of oak that I had, I was given, and I ripped it in half and then ripped it all the way along to actually get the separation sticks. So these are fitted here, and the way how I got the grooves done, it was a tip, an ingenious tip from Wood by Wright. There is a channel called Wood by Wright, and that's the first time I actually saw it. I've done it slightly differently, but so my intention was to actually get going with a saw, a router, maybe chisel the edges, create a little dent, and then saw it all the way along into lines, and then eventually removing the material either by chisel, just like that, and or with the router plane. I decided to give it a go by using my number 50. So what I've done, I put a fence here, measure the exact distance of the plane. So each of these have been done by looking at the width of my wooden planes, and now on will be my iron planes. And with the fence in here, I then plow the actual recess or dado, and then I use this one as a reference to then cut that one. I've used then that one to cut this one. Obviously, because of the type of a fence that is in here, it sits slightly at an angle. So what I do, I get the groove going, then remove the fence, and then obviously keep it straight. And I even put two depth stop, so it's going to be as straight as it possibly can. Very, very happy with the result, because I only tap them in, and these are absolutely solid. They're not even glued, and I've used them all to guide the other one. So it took me an absolute fraction of the time, and it seems to be as precise as I have been before. What I've done with the sticks, I cut them slightly oversized. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a plane, put it into a vise, and then slide them across, and these came out absolutely lovely. And just looking at the grain orientation is this way, and slightly protruding, and now I'm just smoothing it up. Also in this way, I am able to fit each of these exactly to the groove I just created. So I'm able to see where it is slightly proud and where it is slightly too thick, then refine that specific point, and then just shim it like that. And I believe that's the reason why the fit is actually so great. Interesting hiccup. Last groove I was cutting, it went off track. It was not going straight, and I could hear this banging, and I realized afterwards that there was the screw of the hinge. It was basically too proud, so this is not very thick, and that completely dented my blade. So now I will have to tidy up this and take it on the chin or on the blade. Here we go. managed to find 4 castors, which I need to adapt to put at the bottom so I can wheel the whole box in and out. So I'm just going to drill the holes now. It is slightly oversized in here, so that will actually stick out a bit. I put a spacer, like a cast iron spacer, by cutting some tubes and pipe, and just to elevate it a little bit, because I want to be able to have a little space underneath, so if this is lifted off that bit, so I can put my hand and lift the cover. We're good? Just going to put a little bit of oil, which is the best one at the front. Then I'm going to put a little bit of oil here, given that it's oak. You can always put it from the top, it's fine. But, obviously the head is mushroomed, so just need to be. Obviously need to be careful not to tap too hard, hence the reason why I'm using a stick on the actual fixing of it. Moment of truth, see if the distance is right. It should be 530 maximum width. That's perfect. Well, there's only one way to find out. Not the lightest. That, I am so happy. That is perfect. I can't quite believe it. Oh yeah. This is awesome. Still got about a millimetre here. It's perfect. I am so happy. I think one of the things that I'm the happiest about on this project, apart from the functionality obviously, is that despite it's for my workshop, I really enjoy creating little details. Just the little dowels, and as far as wood is concerned, I did not purchase a single piece in this project. This was left over from a table. I made this from a piece given, was an offcut. Ash which I picked up the trunk, milled it with my bandsaw and dried it, and then worked it, flattened it, joined it, glue it, and then these 2 pieces of oak. I'm not going to refine too much, it's flat at the bottom, but really love the functionality of it, especially with the caster. I wanted to put a handle here, but I then changed my mind because you have the exact space to lift it. The only thing I thought is if I could have a mechanism that will actually hold it, but the weight of 6 jointers is quite impressive, especially because 2 are metal ones, and eventually there will be 3 when I get my number 8. So now finishing, and I'm gonna do boiling seed oil. I'm gonna use I'm gonna spread it with wool, steel wool, and then let it soak for a bit, and then I'm gonna apply a coat of wax, and I'm gonna use and buff it with some wood chips which I actually kept. So might be a bit dusty, but that's how I love it. So what I'm doing now is to create that little indentation. So that little lip has left a tiny mark in here, and I'm using that as a guide. So I traced it here for the distance, and just refining it. And what I'm going to do now is, that is the angle that I took from here, so that is in line with that, and I'm going to use this as a guide. I just checked with this, and yeah, it's slightly more raised, but I'm okay with that. So just over to make sure. I am checking it now. That is absolutely bang on. So I saw the first cut at 70 degrees. Given the 90 degree that there is here, that means that the front face, I should go in at about 20 degree, this angle. I know it doesn't have to be absolutely spot on, but if I use that as a reference, then I generally have a feel for what is 20 because of hand sharpening. So you know, starting, I normally sharpen at 30, in some instances 25, so it's probably a little bit shy of that. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. The most important point is the inclination of this, because this will butt up against that lip. Found another way that I think is more precise, as it takes 90 degree off that very angle, which I know is exactly this angle. I took a blade, square, leaning on the square, and this is a bit shy. Again, that's fine. Spot on. Perfect. And I'm going to keep this one as my inclination, as a guide. So what I'm doing now, I locked my finger underneath, and I'm using that as the distance where to rest the chisel. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I just feel that it would maintain an angle. First, the second coat of the boiling seed oil was done. Really like the actual colour now. So you can see still the difference between the ash and the oak. I tried my best to match the orientation of the grain, so all the grain in here is going this way. Just tiny little details that I think they tend to go, in my view, quite a bit of a long way. Well, what I really love, all these medullary rings, these white bits that you can see, now they really popped out. So really happy with that. And now I'm just doing a coat of wax. Put on the boiling seed oil with steel wool, and now I'm going to use the beeswax, let it dry a bit, and then buff it off with some wood chips and shavings from the same project. I'll use the oak, not the ash, so slightly harder wood. Really looking forward to it. We just need to do this, and then cooking on gas. I go both with the grains and then all the way across the grain, and I buff it off in all sorts of directions. That's it. Oh God. Lovely, absolutely love it. I love this process. Leaving to aside the exceptionally low environmental impact, what I found is that if I run it across the grain and I put it on across the grain, obviously it creates like a flatter surface, but what I really love is actually feel the contour of the actual fibers. But personally, because I really like the actual tactile feel of the wood on my hands, so that's how I do it. And as always, I'm not trying to teach anything to anyone. This is what I like for this kind of purpose. I personally really like it. The smoothness in here, and yet if you go across, you can actually feel the wood. I don't know, it just makes it more alive, more real. What I also done is I pulled the shelf towards me about 1 millimeter. Then I put a double glue to try to strengthen these two sides because they're really thin. And with the weight of that, especially with the planes on, it might start to bow further. Double glue here and there, just really the front, so winter time will have the chance to expand that way. The good side of that is that you don't see that millimeter gap that there was in there, so I prefer it that way. See if it holds. I'm pretty sure it will, but if not, I'll do a second video on that.